No. I needed the light. I'm getting used to my brand new laptop. Oh my God. Welcome back to another episode of ICant-HeCan. My name is Sarai. This is episode 36, where we are continuing the Sound Mind series, and we are reading through the book of Ecclesiastes, which I told you guys in episode 35 that I had the hardest time understanding this. I'm so sorry if you hear all this background noise. I'm not used to my brand new computer that was gifted to me. I'm feeling the joy of the Lord. Someone wanted me to feel the joy of the Lord. And as I'm feeling it right now, I'm also on a bunch of medicine and steroids because, as I also mentioned, I have been taking a step back from time to time because of the relapse with MS and all those things that I discussed before the introduction of Ecclesiastes last week for chapter 1, which when we discussed this, just to recap for you guys before we run into chapter 2. And the introduction. The recap of chapter 1 was about vanity, and I told you that Solomon, or so the scholars think, that Solomon did not write the book of Ecclesiastes, but I'm pretty sure that he did, especially because of the way of writing. He's certainly not Paul. Not that Paul is bad, or he's just very different, and I understood Paul much better. However, today was the day, in rereading for the fourth time Ecclesiastes, that I actually understood what the living word was. I always understood it, but I understood it much better today, because again, how could you read a book, the same book, 2-3 times and not understand what it is that you're looking at? I understood that today. And I understood that today. Why? Because just like Solomon, and I'm probably going to say this again for chapter 3, but just like Solomon, I was doing exactly what he was doing. I was trying to know the Lord's wisdom, God's wisdom, and also have your foot in sin and want to do what the flesh wants to do and wants to live by all the worldly things. And if you stick with me, how I said in chapter 1 and the introduction, which I hadn't read properly the introduction before I started reading Ecclesiastes, it's like a little sad diary, which is what the introduction says, not me. However, it is like a sad diary of Solomon's life and what he learned through the vanity of life and trying to live in what he calls pursuit of wisdom, because he was in the pursuit of wisdom in chapter 1. And then as now we're going to start reading in chapter 2. Again, I'm sorry for all the noise. I know I'm hitting my Bible in front of me and the mic is picking it up. Also, my throat really does hurt a little bit, so I apologize if you hear some chewing. Those are some bricolas that I have here in my desk because I am a little wired up at the moment. Before I crash, probably gonna edit this out, but anyway. All right, so chapter 2 is very different from chapter 1. Chapter 1 is basically just talking about what he wanted to do in life. He was expressing what vanity was in general to him, everything that he experienced from the moment that he was born, through what he went through what then he had later in life. However, then in chapter 2, he starts discussing the differences between what he learned in a young age as he grew older and he grew wiser, but then also what he discovered that he couldn't have done or learned being in sin and having his foot in that vanity and that pleasure, and what he called it here, you'll see in verse 1, having to do with joy, what we all want, which right now I have a different kind of joy because my joy is because of the revelation I had today and also because of the meds that I have flowing through me. Powered off. And also because of the meds that I have flowing through me, he calls it a spiritual pleasure. A spiritual pleasure. So we're going to jump into chapter 2. And before we do that, because I know this has been quite the introduction for the episode that I should have posted this morning, had a lot going on this morning with the doctor, the hospital, and all of that. I'm going to read some very brief notes from the introduction to chapter 2. And it says that he decided to try the opposite, pure pleasure. He being Solomon, not God. No, it was Solomon. He tried to do the opposite of chapter 1, which was seeking wisdom. He tried to seek pure pleasure. And pure pleasure can translate into what he called vanity. Then the introduction goes on to say that Solomon even insists, and I have insists circled, that he pursued these things even as he was seeking wisdom. And you can find that Ecclesiastes chapter 2 verse 3, so we'll get to that. So he insisted on trying both ways, which is why I was saying that I feel that I wasn't understanding this, because I was also doing the same thing. And when you try to seek the wisdom and live by things of the world, you're not going to understand really anything in the Bible, because you're being lukewarm. You are not really trying to understand the Lord and what he has in store for you. So anyway, to finish with this little summary of chapter 2 before we start reading the verse by verse, I highlighted the section in the summary that says, but earthly pleasures are short-lived. And that is true. Life as a whole is short-lived. Whether it's a person who lives 30 years, 33 like Jesus, lives 40, lives 50, lives 60, everything is short-lived. Everything, like how it says in chapter 1, is a vapor. Life is a vapor. We seem to forget that. Earthly pleasures, just like life, are short-lived. They come and they go. We're going to read a little bit more about that. And temporary pleasures were and are not central to human fulfillment. Doesn't matter what you do, and I know that I spoke about that in last week's episode of chapter 1, that it doesn't matter what we do, all the work that we start, any endeavors, any businesses, any side hustle, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter what we do, none of it is going to fulfill us like the Lord. So why are we going to continue doing those things and seeking fulfillment from things that are part of vanity and being vain and things that are not of the Lord? Why are we going to seek those things instead of just accepting that he is in control and allowing him to do the work in your life? But that's it for my brief, very actually 8-minute introduction to chapter 2 and reading the little highlights of my summary as I was trying to study the book again today. So to continue and to begin Ecclesiastes chapter 2, I'm going to read verse by verse, and we'll be stopping from time to time to understand to explain to you guys what I was understanding as I was reading today. Not the first 3 times that I didn't really grasp it, because I was grasping for the air. Now I was actually grasping for what I should have been, which was God's word, God's purpose for me in understanding why I'm reading this book. So today I'm going to share what I have highlighted, what I have understood from chapter 2. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 1. Solomon says here, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure. But surely this also was vanity. Verse 2. I said of laughter, madness, and of mirth, what does it accomplish? Verse 3. I searched in my heart how to gratify my flesh with wine, while guiding my heart with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the sons of men to do under heaven all the days of their lives. So verse 1, Solomon starts with saying, I said in my heart. Again, in his heart, not with the wisdom he was seeking, with his own heart. He was saying to himself, come now, I will test you with mirth. So he's telling his heart that he's going to test himself with mirth. I've heard the word mirth before, and I have it circled here because I had to go back and understand what mirth was. If you just read past things without actually understanding them, then you're going to miss the point. And mirth is having to do with joy. It's a spiritual kind of joy. It's the superficial type of pleasure that we get from earthly things. So he said to his heart, come now, I will test you with mirth. So he was seeking wisdom, but here in Ecclesiastes 2, he was also seeking to find that sort of spiritual joy that was actually kind of superficial. Honey, babe. Babe, I could hear you. Huh? I hear you breathing. Well, the mic is picking up, not me. Well, I hear you too, because they died, but the mic is picking up.
You don't have to breathe?
No, I'm just saying. I didn't hear you before. That's why I turned around.
Why are you telling me?
Because the mic is picking you up.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. I said it because you're falling asleep. That's why.
I'm not. I'm watching.
Oh.
You must stop breathing?
I was recording all that. No, not funny? Okay, I thought it was funny.
I'll send you a message, by the way.
Oh, I have it on D&D. Okay. Sorry for that brief pause. So as I was saying, mirth is a type of joy, and he was testing his own heart with that mirth. So let's reread verse 1. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with mirth. Therefore, enjoy pleasure. So he's telling himself, enjoy pleasure. But he continues to say, but surely this also was vanity. He already knew the wisdom that he tried to gain in chapter 1. He already knew what was vanity, what was not something that he should be doing. But of course, the heart is deceiving, and he wasn't thinking with what he learned, with that wisdom, with that knowledge that he had gained throughout the years. He was thinking with his heart. And he said, this also was vanity. Verse 2. I said of laughter. Remember, mirth. So it's a spiritual joy. It's a kind of, this is me talking. I'm kind of just chiming in here. I said with laughter, madness, and of mirth. There it goes again. Verse 2. I said, does it accomplish? ? So he's asking himself, what does it accomplish? What does mirth give you? It brings madness. It brings madness. It brings things that are not of the Lord. Does the Lord also bring madness and tumultuous things? Yes, but the Lord brings those things because of our decisions, because it's after all the chances and all the grace that he provides. It's not when we're doing things in the correct way. Madness comes after the mirth. Madness, ! If you read the New King James Version, Ecclesiastes 2, verse 2, I said of laughter, then it says madness, ! And of mirth. Madness first, then the mirth. What does it accomplish? Absolutely nothing good. That's what I wrote there. Verse 3. I searched in my heart how to gratify my flesh with wine. Again, he's searching his heart, how to make his heart and his flesh, keyword, my flesh, feel gratified, while guiding my heart with wisdom. continuing on, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the sons of men to do under heaven all the days of their life. So I have highlighted the first part of the sentence, I searched in my heart how to gratify my flesh with wine. I have wine circled, and I have wine list circled there and with a little line over it saying sin, because wine can be a sin. If you overindulge in wine, it quite certainly inebriates you and it becomes something that can be sinful to the flesh. And in this case, Solomon is saying that he was trying to gratify his flesh with wine. And if you also think of wine when you're younger, all you want to do is drink. All you want to do is drink. Why? Because you can't do it. At least nowadays, you can't do it until you're 21. So I'm not sure when this was written by Solomon, how old he may have been. But if he was young, he may have wanted to also gratify the flesh with wine, even though I know that wine wasn't used always just to be inebriated in that time and to be drunk. You know, it was kind of like something that they had to drink because the water was making them sick. However, if you overindulged in it, then it could lead you to do other things and to sin, in my eyes. I just kind of thought of that now. But anyway, he continues to write, while guiding my heart with wisdom, again, sin and wisdom cannot coexist, and how to lay hold on folly. So he wanted to guide his heart with wisdom, but also hold off on folly. And I have highlighted here that folly is one of the many extremely rare words that are used only in the book of Ecclesiastes. And the definition that the NKJV version that I'm reading is giving, it says it is translated as folly and foolishness. So he wants to guide his heart with wisdom by using wine, while also holding off on foolishness. In today's day and age, we would say make it make sense. Honestly, like make that make sense. And I can make sense of it because, again, I was doing the same thing, trying to understand with wisdom as I'm reading this, but I still had foolishness going on and trying to have my foot in wisdom. So that's just not going to work. It cancels itself out. To finish off verse 3, good for the sons of men to do under heaven all the days of their lives. So it's like he was almost kind of going on a mission to figure out if you can have wisdom and live that kind of life, but also live with mirth that was earthly and live with folly that was earthly. So I'll just leave that right there. Continuing on to verse 4. I'm sorry, there was just a lot that I was taking today from chapter 2 and chapter 3. Verse 4. I made my works great. I built myself houses, and I planted myself vineyards. Verse 5. I made myself gardens and orchards, and I planted all kinds of fruits trees in them. I made myself water pools from which to water the growing trees of the grove. Verse 7. I acquired male and female servants, and I had servants born in my house. Yes, I had greater possessions of herds and flocks than all who were in Jerusalem before me. He was very powerful. Verse 8. I said he was very powerful. Well, he was, but I'm sorry, I'm interjecting. Verse 8. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the special treasures of kings and of the provinces. I acquired male and female singers, the delights of the sons of men, and musical instruments of all kinds. So we'll stop right there for a second. There's a lot going on in this sentence, but if there's one thing that really stood out for me is on verse 4, when he said, I made my works great. I built myself houses and planted myself vineyards. I was just saying that when you're young, you want to do things that you can't do. So now reading verse 4, or when I read verse 4 earlier today, it sounded like an answer to me. It sounded like Solomon was looking back on his life and seeing that all these superficial pleasures that he was wanting to fulfill in verse 1 through 3 did nothing for him. Yet then answering later in verse 4, he said, he did these things. He made his works great. He built a house. He planted himself vineyards, and he continues to say gardens, orchards, all kind of fruit trees. He had a grove. He acquired male and female servants that were born in his house, male servants. He continues to say that he had possessions of herds and flocks. Again, all very powerful and things that not everyone had. He was very powerful. He even had silver and gold. No one had silver and gold back then unless they were very, very powerful in that time. But the key that really stood out for me here is that he keeps saying I. Even being older, he keeps saying I here. I did this. I made this great. I built this. I built that. So just keep that in mind, because we're very early on, like I said in Ecclesiastes, and the full picture won't come to mind until chapter 12, which is how I mentioned in the introduction. So please just stick with me. He's realizing at a later age, at an older age, that he did all these things being younger, but here in this moment, he was still using I for himself. Then I also had a little side note that says he had all the riches and became wealthiest of all. And yeah, it's very true. He had all the means to do these things. So that's from like the first time I read the book, I think, because that was very vague on my part. But anyway, moving on to verse 9. So I became great and excelled. Again, there is I. I became great and excelled more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. This was the verse 9 that I talked about in the introduction, where some scholars say that that's why he's the one that wrote this book. Because of this very verse, Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 9. So I became great and excelled more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. So that helps kind of narrow down perhaps who and when this was written. Also, my wisdom remained with me. Verse 10, whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. So whatever his eyes wanted, he desired, and he did not keep it from them. So just like us, we are so horrible in resisting the flesh. We see something in front of us, and immediately we don't think with the wisdom that we have gained from all the things that we've been through, from all the lessons that we've been taught by the Lord, by God, the many times that he's spoken to us. No, we just want whatever is in front of us. And that's exactly what he is saying here. Verse 10, whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. And I have a little side note that says he had and did it all. And so do we. Sometimes we have it all. I know I have it all. I have it all. I have an amazing job, an amazing family, an amazing house. I have a brand new amazing computer that was just gifted to me by an amazing man named David, who saw the need for me to replace my computer because my computer was from 2017 and he gifted me a brand new one. So all these things that have been provided to us, we want it all. This laptop was provided to him and he saw a need to use that for me and he provided that to me. And then it's the same thing. Like, it's just the same thing for so many people. Whatever our eyes desire, we don't keep from them. So verse 10 continued, says, I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my reward from all my labor. So again, sometimes we have all these amazing things, we overlook it, but we don't actually see why we have all of these things. We take them for granted. But then when we finally understand and we withhold from the heart of the pleasure that these things are bringing, we withhold it from the heart and we come back down to earth and we understand this is from the Lord. I didn't get this for myself, or I didn't get this from myself. I got this from Him because He is great and He is my provider. How some people know Him by that name, Jehovah Jireh. Then we truly understand where these things come from. That's not vanity, because we're not associating anymore with I did this, I did that. No, that's from the Lord. So you withhold those things from your heart. You don't see it as pleasure anymore because you went out and you bought it and it gave you pleasure to gift yourself something. No, you worked for it with the God-given job that you have, and then you went out and you were able to buy it. Why? Because it was provided to you. So verse 10 one more time. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my reward from all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had done. Verse 11. Going back, I didn't say verse 11. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had done, and on the labor in which I had toiled. And if you know, toiled has a little bit of a negative connotation. You kind of grapple with something. And on all the labor in which I had toiled, and indeed all was vanity and grasping for the wind. I said in chapter 1, imagine your hands being stretched out and you're trying to reach for the wind. You can't reach for the wind. You'll never touch the wind. Verse 11 continues and ends with, there was no profit under the sun. My little side note here says, or I wrote in here, still found it was all fleeting. Of course, after reading that, he finally understood that when you even withhold pleasures and things from your heart and you try to rejoice, you don't try to rejoice in your labor. You try to just understand that everything you have is a reward from God because of your labor that He gave you, that He provided you. Then you can look at all your works, all of the fruit, all of the gifts that you are reaping from your labor, that your hands actually did, like he said in verse 11. You won't have to grapple anymore. You won't have to toil anymore with those things being vanity. You will be grateful and you will understand that it was God-given. I'm not going to continue saying that because I don't want to give too much of what I was understanding. I didn't read to... I don't want to ruin every single thing that I've learned so far. I really hope you guys are reading this on your own. And indeed, all was vanity and grasping for the wind. There was no profit under the sun. There was, again, he's talking past tense, makes me feel as if he's older here. And still, after being older, he's saying that in the things that he did when he was of young age, he realizes now that there's no profit. There's nothing that you can collect. There's nothing that you can reap that is under the sun if it's not from God. And where is God? Where is the Lord? They're not under the sun. Go back to Genesis and read where the sun came from, what the sun does, what the sun provides. Go back and read where that came from and who is associated with the sun and what the sun provides. And by sun, right now, as I'm reading in verse 11, I mean sun as an S-U-N, not capital S-O-N. So just to clarify that, go back and read that. to finish off in chapter 2, verse 12. Then I turned myself to consider wisdom and madness and folly. Oh gosh, I missed that part today and I'm understanding that now. Going back to verse 1. Wow. So verse 12 correlates with verse 1. Then I turned myself to consider. He stopped himself to think about wisdom and again about madness and folly, the three things that he was trying to mix. For what can the man do who succeeds the king? And the king is all lowercase, is not referring to God. Then I turned myself to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who succeeds the king? Continues to say in verse 11, only what he has already done. That's the only thing that you can go back and ponder and think about. There is no one higher than the king with capital K, with God. The only one who can succeed him is himself. Like, there's no way that we will ever understand or do anything that can succeed him. Why? Because again, how Solomon understood in verses 10 through 11, he already knew at an older age that it doesn't matter what you do, it's not from yourself, it's from God. So he was toiling with that, and here he is saying in verse 12, then I turned to myself to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who succeeds the king? Man can do nothing. Man, woman, child can do nothing that succeeds the king, another person. There's no one higher. Only what he has already done. We could only succeed what we do right now. So if we set the bar very low for ourselves and we don't try to do better, we just continue with things of the world, and that's all that we are going to do. But we also need to listen, or in turn consider, as Solomon is saying here, we need to consider what it is that we're doing. Verse 13, and I have this entire verse circled with, I put the aha moment. So he asks the question in verse 12, and then he answers in verse 13, which I'm very grateful with how I am studying now on Wednesdays the Bible, because in context, everything makes so much more sense. But when you read out of context, and it's very easily to read Ecclesiastes out of context, like I mentioned in my introduction of chapter 1, you will not understand. So verse 13, his aha moment in my eyes, says, then I saw that wisdom excels folly. Folly again. It only appears in Ecclesiastes, and folly is translated according to my notes here from the NKJV Bible, my version that I have. It derives from a verb that usually carries a moral or spiritual sense, and folly translates to foolishness. So let's just refreshing our memories. Verse 13, then I saw that wisdom excels folly, as light excels darkness. That's the aha moment. And I didn't realize that earlier when I wrote that was his aha moment. Because in verse 11, as I was saying at the very last part of verse 11, there was no prophet under the sun. And what does he say in verse 13? Then I saw that wisdom excels folly, as light, that is underlined, light excels darkness. You can take that verse at face value. You can read a little bit ahead, which I'm going to do, obviously. Or you can understand that the sun gives light, and light will always excel darkness, because whatever is in the darkness, the light is going to expose. So again, go back, read where the sun came from in Genesis. Read what the sun does what it may represent. Just try to understand that, and you'll kind of see where my brain is spiraling to as I'm reading this. Continuing on, verse 14. And I'm going to read 12 through 14 altogether after this. But 14 says, the wise man's eyes are in his head. Yes, yes they are. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. So the wise man has the eyes that are in his head because he's not thinking with his heart. He's actually thinking with his head. But the fool walks in darkness. I wonder why the fools walk in darkness. Because they're thinking with what? Clearly not with their heads. 14 continues and says, yet I myself perceived. Perceive does not mean that you find out something that is true. Perceive is your perception, the way that you see things. And again, going back to the beginning of verse 14, the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. Yet I myself perceived, meaning he didn't see it. He thought it. He thought about it. That's just what it appeared to be. That doesn't mean that he actually saw it with his eyes. Yet I myself perceived that the same event happens to them all. So let's read 12, 13, 14. Then I turned myself to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who succeeds the king? Only what he has already done. Verse 13. Then I saw the wisdom excels folly as light excels in darkness. Verse 14. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. Yet I myself perceived that the same event happens to them all. So again, that last part, I had no notes on that last sentence. That same event happens to them all. But I am honestly thinking right now that Solomon meant to say the same event, or the same sins, the same pleasures that really just turn out to be very superficial and fleeting and a vapor and of absolutely nothing good that comes from them, happens to them all. But all is who? All are the fools, the people that are walking in darkness, the people that are choosing folly and mirth over the wisdom and trying to not be holy and sinful at the same time. That is the same event that happens over and over and over again to those men, and not just men, but to us all. Verse 15. So I said in my heart, again, Solomon talking past tense, talking about perhaps when he was younger, but he's also saying again, in my heart. So I said in my heart, as it happens to the fool, it also happens to me. Of course, because you're thinking with your heart, you fool. Sorry, Solomon. Oh gosh. So I said in my heart, as it happens to the fool, it also happens to me. And why was I then more wise? Well, if you read more of the Bible, this is me veering off a little bit. If you read more of the Bible, you will see why he was more wise, where he came from. This tells me where he came from, this one sentence, but that's for another day. I'm not going to get into all of that. Verse 15. So I said in my heart, as it happens to the fool, it also happens to me. It could happen to anyone. Anyone. We all fall down this rabbit hole. Why? Because we live on this cursed earth. We live on this sinful earth, which is why it's important to resist your flesh and listen to what the Lord has for us. Because everything is from him. Everything is from him, not from us. So let's continue. Then I said in my heart, this is also vanity. I'm glad he finally understood. Verse 16. For there is no more remembrance of the wise than of the fool forever, since all that now is will be forgotten in the days to come. And now does a wise man die? Question mark? As the fool! Exclamation point. I'm going to reread that one more time because I have it underlined, and I was like, man, I read this the first time and I didn't really get it, but I really understand it now. Verse 16 says, "For there is no more remembrance of the wise man than of the fool forever, since all that now is will be forgotten in the days to come." The days to come. Very prophetic, if you ask me. And how does a wise man die? As the fool. So I think when this was written, this was very prophetic, because there is no more remembrance of the wise man, of the fool forever. No, we know what happens after Jesus was crucified. And this is something that I've also toiled with and grappled with. Condemnation for my sin, because the second we're born and we can breathe and our hearts start beating, we're already sinful. We're already sinners. And for there is no more remembrance of the wise than of the fool forever, since all that now is will be forgotten in the days to come. Again, when this was written, this was the Old Testament. It was not the New Testament. Jesus was not born. I'm only saying this because this is just how I'm interpreting this. Since all that is now will be forgotten in the days to come. In the days to come, when Jesus was crucified, he took that all away for everyone. He took all of our mirth, all of our folly, and everything that we've toiled with, all of the vanity, all of our sin. He took that with the cross. Therefore, in my mind that I'm trying to use more, not my heart, I'm understanding that for there is no more remembrance of our condemnation, of our sin, because the wise man, than of the fool forever, since all that now is will be forgotten in the days to come. Sorry, I interjected there just a little bit. I just had to say that. And now does the wise man die as the fool? Solomon, perhaps in this time, would think that he was going to die a fool. Why? Because he was still sinful, and he didn't live in a time where Jesus took away everyone's sin. No, Jesus did not exist. Only God, only the Father existed. So therefore, that's why he had that mindset, or that's why he must have had that mindset. So how does a wise man die? As the fool. Well, not anymore. Not anymore. We don't have to be that fool. We have to resist the flesh. We have to listen and to understand that all these things that are superficial pleasures and vanity, we're all going to leave that behind. But because we have Jesus now, if you accept him and you declare him as Lord, as your Lord, then you're not going to die a fool. Because you are actually a wise man who says and believes and knows what he did for us on that cross. So there is no more remembrance or condemnation for your sins, for all the things that you have done, like Solomon toiling and trying to decide if you can be sinful and if you can be wise all in one. No, there was only one man who knew both. One man who was perfect and holy and that understood the sin of the world, because he took it all for us. He took it all for us. And therefore there is no more remembrance of that. So we won't die fools. We will only die once. We will only die once on this cursed earth. And we will live with him and with the Father in glory and in a perfect body, not in a vessel and not in flesh. Solomon didn't know that. Verse 16 says, "For there is no more remembrance of the wise than of the fool forever, since all that now is will be forgotten in the days to come." The days to come are here right now. 2026. This is the days to come that he was talking about when this was written. And now does a wise man die as the fool. Do not be a fool. The time is now. The time is now to stop messing around. Like in chapter 1, Ecclesiastes 1. Do not be old Solomon, who's writing down his very crazy and tumultuous life, explaining what he was trying to gain from vanity and from pleasure and from things of the world, from superficial pleasures that were giving him that joy, or what he thought was joy. But what came from that joy? Madness. And what did he learn then as an old man that he didn't understand because he didn't have Jesus at the time? He still thought he was going to die. So what was it worth to him? Well, he tried. But why did he try? Because God, the Father, chose him as the vessel here on earth to experience all of those things, so that he can then, as an old man, however old he was, maybe not even that old, honestly, I am not sure, and I apologize for that, but he was chosen by God. That was his purpose, to pen this and to put this on paper, to leave it for us so that we understood that you can't mix wisdom with holy. You can't. You absolutely cannot. Wisdom with sin. Sorry, I backtracking that. But at the same time, we can be wise, but we can't be holy, because the only holy person is Jesus and God. So I want to make my point there too. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this very long podcast on Ecclesiastes chapter 2, which is only 26 verses. I hope that you have followed along, that you continue to read on your own, and I cannot wait to share what I learned from episode 36, Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I hope you stick around for part 2. Until next time, my friends, take care.